as we learned in the first 2 parts of this series, no one was safe from the rumored curse surrounding the Poltergeist franchise, and, unfortunately, the curse was about to call upon another of the film's stars. If it weren't already clear, tonight will show to an even greater extent that when it comes to cursed films, there is no escaping the terror. Long after the director calls cut and filming wraps, the curse persists, creating an echo chamber of horror for those caught in its grasp. Following the many tragic events surrounding the original film, there was, understandably, an air of concern in regards to proceeding with a sequel. But this is Hollywood, where money talks, and the production companies wield the power of the final say. And seeing as Poltergeist would go on to gross a total of $121.7 million at the box office, the desire to get the sequel out while the public interest was still piqued would be the prime motivating factor in the decision to quickly move forward with a sequel. Principal photography would begin on Poltergeist 2 in May of 1985, with the original production schedule spanning 64 days. The sequel film, subtitled The Other Side, would see Craig T. Nelson and Jo Beth Williams reprising their roles as the Freeling parents Steve and Diane. Also returning would be Heather O'Rourke and Oliver Robbins as Carol Ann and Robbie, the 2 youngest Freeling children. The original script also saw a return of eldest daughter Dana appearing in some scenes while visiting from college. As we know, those scenes would have to be scrapped from the film's final draft, as actress Dominique Dunn would not be with us to step back into her role. The sequel would find the Freeling family 1 year after the terrifying events of the original film, relocated in Phoenix, Arizona, living with Diane's mother, the highly clairvoyant Jess. Jess felt strongly that her clairvoyancy was handed down to Diane, and from Diane to Carol Ann. Meanwhile, back in their former Cuesta Verde neighborhood, there have been some changes. The housing development has been replaced, and the neighborhood is now an archaeological dig site centered around the plot of land where the former Freeling homestead once stood. During the excavation, a cave is discovered. Once the ground crew reveals this to Tangina Barons, another familiar face from the original film, this psychic who led the charge in rescuing Carol Ann senses that the evil may still reside and confides in her friend and Native American shaman Taylor. Upon arriving to the cave to see for himself, Taylor is struck by the realization that the deceased and fanatical preacher by the name of Henry Kane, who has been haunting his dreams, is more than just a dream, and is very much real, and is after Carol Ann. And thus we have the plot of Poltergeist 2, as the horror is not over, and the continuation of the battle of good versus evil is again underfoot, as Taylor journeys to protect the innocent young girl from the spirits that would so eagerly do her harm. With Taylor acting as spiritual protector, the Freelings would once again prevail, and good would win out over evil. Unfortunately, the evil surrounding the production of Poltergeist also found its way onto the set of the sequel, as clearly the production crew hadn't learned their lesson from the first film, opting to, once again, use real cadavers in place of props. While the spirits in the script were fictional, it would appear that there were in fact spirits around the set, and they were very real and very pissed. In one instance, an entire day's worth of film mysteriously came out blank. This resulted in that whole day of filming needing to be reshot, which cost the production upwards of $100,000. On the night before the reshoots were to commence, Will Sampson, the actor portraying the pivotal role of Taylor, who was also a Muskogee Indian, would request the opportunity to perform an exorcism in the hopes of cleansing the production of any potentially harmful spirits. And while an exorcism would be performed early the morning of the reshoots at 4 a.m., and while most of the crew and cast would report that the set then felt lighter, many would wonder in the years that have followed if all this did was put a spotlight on Sampson himself and put him in the direct path of the curse, making him a prime target.
And now a word from our sponsors.
VENATOS
is in our hands. It's left to us, guys. And we gotta do something with it.
Anyone who's been a part of the Press Start family for any amount of time knows that I truly appreciate and value the relationship that I have with today's sponsor, VENATOS. They are truly an outstanding company with great quality products that I can truly get behind and put my stamp of approval on. Their customer service is absolutely hands down some of the best on the marketplace. If you reach out to them for any reason, your emails are typically responded to within hours, not days, hours. And not only do they promise to make it right, they promise to make it better. And as a thank you for your support, they are offering a 10% discount on any orders if you use the code PRESSSTARTMOM at checkout. They do ship internationally, including Canada, and 100% stand by the quality of their products. And so do I. Thank you, VENATOS, for sponsoring this video, and thank you to all of you for checking out VENATOS. Let's get back to the video. Will Sampson Jr. was born in Okmulgee County, Oklahoma on September 27, 1933, to Wiley and Mabel Lewis Sampson, who were full-blooded Muskogee Indians. As a child, Will was described as being multi-talented, having an interest in nearly everything surrounding him. In researching the life of Will Sampson, I was surprised at just how talented he truly was. He literally had not one, not two, but 3 successful careers. He was known for his profound love and respect for his Native American culture, and found himself drawn to painting the beautiful landscapes that surrounded him, and ultimately became a successful painter of Western art, giving the world a glimpse into the beauty of his world. At the beginning of his art career, Sampson worked everywhere and on everything that came to mind. He created images of his native Muskogee, as well as various historical events and traditions of the Native American nation, poured lovingly on his canvases. His works told a story and wove vivid and vibrant tapestries, giving a brief look into his life and the rich history of his culture. His works were so realistic, helped by his near photographic memory, and really made you feel like you were there. It offered an artistic view of a direct correlation to reality. In 1951, Will Sampson received his first award as an artist, handed to the Philbrook Center for Painting. Additionally, in 1969, he was nominated for the Okmulgee Cultural Fund Award in the Artistic and Spectacular Arts category, to which he would easily win, and he would go on to win several other various awards for Most Popular Artist. His art was so renowned and respected that he was allowed to create within the walls of the Smithsonian, the Library of Congress, and many others. He also served as vice president of the Oklahoma Union of Artists and director of the Okmulgee Chiefs Art Gallery. In addition to painting the beauty of the landscape that surrounded him, Sampson also competed in rodeos. He spent the first 20 years of his career on the rodeo circuit busting broncos. He was an opposing force, standing at an intimidating and astonishing 6'7", fascinated by the rodeo world. His passion would be evident in the works he continued to paint, and he would make many friends among the cowboys while he worked at being a confident and capable competitive bull rider. Although his stature would be viewed as intimidating, he was quite literally a gentle giant, described by many as one of the kindest people you could ever meet. However, it would be because of his impressive size that he would find himself being approached by movie producers. Will Sampson would make his on-screen debut in 1975 in the Jonathan Demme film Crazy Mama, starring Cloris Leachman, as a small walk-on part. But he would be seen as a standout. He left such an impression that he would go on to be cast as the, albeit ostensibly, deaf-mute Chief Bromden in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest later that same year. This would prove to be the role. The role that would put him on the map. His appearance as Chief Bromden was so memorable that many would forget that he was hardly a one-trick pony, no pun intended, as he would spend the remainder of his years working constantly on high-profile films and TV shows, none the least of which was his role of Taylor in Poltergeist 2. Anyone who spoke to Sampson during the filming of the Poltergeist sequel would note that he was convinced that the set was haunted, and that he felt a sense of foreboding and evil hanging over the film, with several odd occurrences around set ranging from cold spots, things going missing, and film being deleted to just an overall feeling of discomfort. Sampson felt that an exorcism was the only answer. He used several Native American rituals to bless the set, its crew, and the cast. And while this seemed to stave off the spirits and the remainder of the filming would proceed relatively smoothly, the question would remain, were things really improved? Or was it all an illusion? Did Sampson really remove all the evil spirits? Or just delay them? Did he simply transfer the spirits from the film set to himself, as it would be less than a year after the film's release date that Sampson would be dead? Not long after filming had wrapped, Sampson was diagnosed with scleroderma, which is a skin disease that leads to abnormal thickening or fibrosis of the skin. His condition would decline quite rapidly, leading to the necessity of a heart-lung transplant, which was known to be a risky surgery. And unfortunately for Sampson, it would prove to be the beginning of the end, and he would succumb on June 3rd, 1987. In the obituary written by Bert Folkert in the Los Angeles Times article from June 4th, he would recap the life of Sampson quite articulately. He writes, "Will Sampson, the gentle Indian giant, remembered for his portrayal of the feigning mute chief in the alternately amusing and poignant film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, died Wednesday in Houston. He was 53 and died 43 days after undergoing a heart-lung transplant at Methodist Hospital, to which he had gone from his home in Los Angeles. The 6'7" tall, full-blooded Creek Indian, who came to acting after careers on the rodeo circuit and as an artist, had suffered from scleroderma, a chronic degenerative disease that produces swelling of the skin and affected his heart and lungs. Hospital spokeswoman Brenda Blake, who said that Sampson's son and former wife were at his bedside, said, "He knew the chances for survival were extremely small because of his weakened condition prior to surgery. His weight had dropped from a normal 260 pounds to 140. In his youth, it was most likely far beyond his wildest expectations that he would grow up to be such a success, and that he would star in a movie that would go on to be nominated for 5 Academy Awards. And one film that would intrinsically be linked forever with his death, and lead to speculation as to if it was this very film, with its rumored curse, that was in fact responsible for his death. One thing, however, that had no need for speculation and was just proven fact was that Will Sampson was beloved by those who were close to him. In the memorial service held at the Okmulgee Baptist Church, he was mourned as, quote, "a man who made us to be proud and gave us a good name." Reverend Jimmy Anderson reflected, "We can do anything as American Indian people and be outstanding at it," as he adorned the loving native's casket with an Indian blanket and a straw cowboy hat. Few Indian people have the opportunity to do good for our people and lift our status. Will Sampson's death would draw tributes from several of his co-stars over the years. Former Barney Miller actor Max Gale eulogized Sampson as a person with a, quote, fully human heart and mind. Will Sampson Jr. would be laid to rest within the boundaries of his beloved Muskogee Creek. Years later, Craig T. Nelson happened to be passing through the area and knew that he wanted to pay respects to his former co-star and friend. He drove around the Creek Nation for 4 or 5 hours trying to find the cemetery. Becoming frustrated, Nelson stopped at a corner store hoping for some direction and asked the checkout clerk where Mr. Sampson was buried. To his surprise, the man standing next to him at the counter not only knew where the cemetery was, but offered to take him there. Nelson only later discovered that this kind man that offered to act as his guide was none other than Will Sampson's cousin. As he approached the grave, he was overwhelmed by the incessant buzzing of the cicadas that surrounded him. He knelt down beside the tombstone, emotions creeping in, and simply said, "Hey, Will, it's Craig." And within seconds, the cicadas fell completely silent. Whether you fall into the camp of believing that Will Sampson is yet another victim of the curse of Poltergeist, or if his death was just a normal part of life, there is one thing that cannot be denied. He was very beloved and is absolute proof that when we live in the hearts and minds of those we leave behind, then we never truly die. Thank you all so much for watching and helping me keep the memories of these stars alive. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you once again to VENATOS for being so supportive of our channel. Until next time, be kind to one another. Life is too short to be anything but happy. So pursue whatever your happiness is. I love you all.
God is in his holy tent. Earthly thoughts be silent now, while we're